John, the author of this account, puts John the disciple and Peter the disciple side by side so many times. Hi, this is Kevin, going through the overview, the backstory, and some gold in our next segment of our Voice of John series. So this is segment number 6, and we're covering chapters 18 and 19, where Jesus is arrested, mistreated, killed, and then buried. So one of the things to look out for is that John the author writes these 2 chapters, this part of the account, in a way that really especially highlights the self-command, the self-control, the leaderly influence that Jesus has compared to all the other characters in these scenes. I mean, they seem to have all the power. They are the arresters that come into the garden with the authority to arrest him. And they find out they're talking to Jesus, they immediately fall down on their knees and they're scared. He's got to encourage them and pick them up so that they can do their job. And so then they end up going before the 2 high priests, kind of the real high priest, the Godfather high priest, and then the official high. You can just tell it's like a puppet system that these guys are running. And it's in the middle of that Jesus is bold, and they try to be bold, but then they've got to bring him to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, and they don't want to touch him. They want Pontius Pilate to touch him. At that point, they'll beat him up earlier, but when it comes to death, they're not gonna be a part of it. And so now Jesus is in a conversation with Pontius Pilate and the priests, and they're all going back and forth, and you kind of see this hot potato thing going on where Pilate, who's got all the power, he doesn't want to touch Jesus either. He knows he's innocent, and he tries to get the priests to do it, and they're like, no, you do it. He's like, no, you do it. No, you do it. No, you do it. And the priests say, well, we don't have the authority to do it. And Pilate almost kind of deputizes them, and he tells them, well, I'm telling you that you can do it. They still don't want to do it. And in the middle of all that, Jesus is talking truth, and he is boldly telling them where they got their actual authority, and that if he wanted to, he could just take it all away. They're afraid of Jesus. He is in self-command. Even in his last moments on the cross, he ends up being a cool cat by helping establish and build a brand new household that will go on after him after his death. So in all of this, maybe an interesting backstory point is that, we've been talking in previous videos about John the author writing to this community, a Johnian Christian community, maybe the city of Ephesus and a whole collection of different house churches. And that's kind of his audience in this gospel. Well, it also sort of appears that there is probably a secondary audience, and that is not the Johnian community, but more of a Peter-ish community. Now, Peter's probably dead at the time that John writes this account, but the Christian communities that Peter established and kind of gave them a flavor for how to follow Jesus, those aren't dead. Those are still going on. And one of the ways that this possibility leaks through is in the way that John, the author of this account, puts John the disciple and Peter the disciple side by side so many times. And it's almost like he's calling Peter the disciple, which is the perspective of some people. Who was the disciple of Jesus? Oh, it was Peter. And so we are the Peter community, and this is the right flavor of Christian community. And John is presented as not just John, but as the other disciple. There's another way of doing it. And in these accounts, not just this week's segment, but last week's segment also, John and Peter are placed side by side. And they have different dispositions as they are encountering all the things that Jesus has to go through. We're also going to see that next week, in next week's segment, with the resurrection, the appearances of Jesus. We're going to see John and Peter side by side reacting in a different way from one another. And it's almost as John is reaching through his account to talk to the community as well as other communities, saying, you may say that there is a way to be, or the way to be a disciple or follower of Jesus, or even a Christian community, but there's another way too. And sometimes it's a cooler cat way of being a Christian community or a follower of Jesus than the one that you bought into. So anyhow, I don't know if that's weird to you or if that's helpful as you read the text, but take an interest in the back and forth conversations that Jesus has with the people who supposedly have power when he really has all the real power and everyone knows it. But also the constant comparisons of John the disciple and Peter the disciple next to each other. All right, we'll catch you next time. Peace out.